Just a 5-hour drive from the Armenian capital Yerevan lies Kornidzor, a small rural commune of barely 1,000 inhabitants. For several months now, the village's tractors have been collecting dust, and the only sounds heard in the streets are children playing. The villagers have traded in their rakes for weapons and have gone to battle to defend their country. Fearing an invasion from the enemy, these men keep watch day and night over the brand new border with Azerbaijan, which is just a few meters away. Andranik is the village chief. Despite the ceasefire coming into effect on November 10, 2020, tensions between the two countries are still very high. Defeat is hard to accept. Armenians conquered these lands during the first Nagorno-Karabakh war in 1994. These soldiers are all volunteers who take time off from their work on the farm.
To add
to the suffering, a lot of their farmland has been taken over by the enemy.
ընտանիքի, ասենք, հողն այնտեղ մարդիկ լրիվս էլ մշակել ենք, այդնից էլ մնացել, ասում եմ, հիմա վարած ծորենից դաշտում իրանց բազան բերել դրել են այնտեղ։
Other Armenians living along this new border between Armenia and Azerbaijan have lost everything.
Այն սարերը կա, այն տարածները այս, սանք մեր տարածներն ա եղել։
54-year-old Seyran had to abandon his guest house, which was situated on the Azerbaijani side of the border, and lodged truck drivers, a small business that was doing rather well.
Ամբողջ 13 տարի է շենքը սարքել եմ, 13 տարի է սարքել, կոպեկ հավաքել եմ, սարքել, ոսկիտ եմ մի բանի տեր տարնանք, որ այսօր մի քիչ հանգիստ ապրեք, այդ չթողեն։ Շատ կենի մսա, այդ ամբողջ մի 25-ից 30 ֆուրա կաղնում մենակ։
Seyran now lives with his family in Goris, in a house lent to him by his father-in-law, who has gone to work in Russia. Seyran's wife shows us the new border between the two countries on her smartphone. The new border is this vertical white line. Strangely, the Azeri authorities did not use internationally recognized maps, but the Google Maps software, which is very inaccurate. His wife went to the land registry to check the official border.
Երկրորդ անգամ, վերջի անգամ 84 թվին է բաժանվել, 84 թվին էլ արդեն էլի չի անցել։ Իսկ մենք վստահ ենք եղել, որ մենք Հայաստանում ենք գտնվում, դա Հայաստանի սահմանն է, որ մենք մի անգամից անակնկալ ենք եղել։
With his documents in hand, Seyran tried to talk to the Azeris, but to no avail.
Սա մեր տարածքն է։ Մի ժամ հետո սեր չլինես։ Մեր տարածքն է, ասեմ սա դոկումենտ ունեմ, ասում եմ գնա դոկումենտներից վերցուս ես գնել, սա քեզ չտեսնեմ։
These territories ceded to Azerbaijan were populated by tens of thousands of Armenians. Armenia is a small, mountainous country in the Caucasus with a population of only 3 million. It is as large as Belgium and has numerous lakes interspersed across its land. Being the world's first Christian state in the year 301, there are hundreds of churches that shape its landscape. However, Armenia's geographical position is problematic and it's been the source of many conflicts. It's wedged between Turkey and Azerbaijan, two hostile Muslim countries. In 1915, Armenians were the victims of a genocide perpetrated by the Turks of the Ottoman Empire. Today, the whole country is afraid of history repeating itself. In 1920, Armenia became part of Soviet Russia and remained so until the fall of the USSR in 1991.
L'Arménie est indépendante, vive notre Arménie!
But Stalin, whose policy was to divide and conquer, deliberately created an Armenian enclave in Azerbaijan, the Nagorno-Karabakh region. As a result, for the past 35 years, the two countries have been fighting over this territory that comprises around 4,400 square kilometres. At the end of the 1980s, the First Nagorno-Karabakh War resulted in over 30,000 deaths, with Armenia emerging victorious. In 2020, a second war broke out. This time, Azerbaijan, with the support of the authoritarian Turkish government, crushed Armenia. They capitulated after 44 days of fighting, having suffered 4,000 casualties. Azerbaijan took back all the territories it had lost 27 years earlier, with the addition of the towns of Shusha and Hadrut. As a result, over 90,000 Armenians fled Nagorno-Karabakh. Many burned down their homes before leaving. Most victims of the conflict are young people in their 20s. Tigran survived a drone strike. Lost due to the corruption of generals and civil servants who embezzled part of the army's budget.
Բայց իրենք կարողացել են կառուցել միլիոնների առանձնատներ.
Struggling to recover from the war with a dwindling post-Soviet economy. Today, Armenia is a ruined country. From the cities that are struggling to recover to the tragic situations of the victims of the conflict, we try to understand the underlying reasons for this unprecedented crisis. Our investigation into post-war Armenia begins 2 hours north of the Armenian capital, Yerevan. Just a few kilometers from Lake Sevan and its famous monastery, in the luxurious ski resort of Tsagzadzor. This morning, this 5-star hotel received an unexpected delivery. Since November 2020, this luxury hotel, previously visited by wealthy guests, has been home to 170 refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh. Susanna fled the war with her family.
Կապ գումարա պետք որ առնենք, որ թոշակ աստանում քիչ 30,000 մենակ հացի փող չի դառնում, դա ինչ կարաս անես։
Inside the Golden Palace, the luxurious lounge of the reception hall is empty, and the professional staff have been gone for months. The pool, sauna, and casino are closed. In 2019, this hotel was offered to the government by its owner, who was a corrupt businessman. A nice gift of 15 million euros in exchange for dropping all legal proceedings. Until a few months ago, its Its 116 rooms cost between 80 and 500 euros a night, a small fortune in Armenia, where the average salary is just 350 euros a month. Today, in what used to be the sports equipment store, some of the refugees are busy making duvets and winter jackets to sell to skiers. Susanna and her husband had to learn the art of dressmaking.
Եկել եք այստեղ 2 ամիս է արդեն աշխատում եք էլի։ Ես ինտերնետ խանութում աշխատում էի հադրութում։
With a population of 3,800, Hadrut is one of the towns in Nagorno-Karabakh that was ceded back to Azerbaijan. All the Armenians left.
Գոնե այս աշխատանքը մեզ էլի մի քիչ գալիս է օրներ անցակ էնում, աշխատում ենք։
At lunchtime, Susanna meets up with other refugees in the hotel kitchen. Fresh produce has been scarce for several weeks.
Նենց ամիս մի անգամ, 2 անգամ էլի տենց եք ուտում, ամեն օր տենց չի լինում էլի։
The refugees usually eat the same thing each week, with the main ingredients consisting of pulses and cereals. The women take turns cooking, but not without a sense of humour. Susanna lives with her family in room 221. The refugees have taken over the premises of the hotel. Laundry or dry cleaning services are no longer available. Instead, clothes and sheets are hanging everywhere. Their bedroom also serves as a dining room, and they transform the bathroom into a makeshift kitchen. Susanna's family left in a hurry between 2 bombings, so she couldn't take anything with her. The minibar is stocked with a few fresh products.
Ամեն ինչ մի բաժակ կոնյակը ես իմ 5000 դրամ ինչքան թանկ բաներ ա եղել այստեղ
Susanna and her family owned a cozy home, which they had to give up to the Azeris.
Ես իմ կուխնյասա ես իմ տան առաջն է էլի սենց սաղ ծաղիկներ էի ցանել վարդերի մեջ կանգնած Սանտիվը նոր տարին արեցինք հետո էտա դուրս եկակ այդտեղից էլ ոչ մի բան չեք տեսել այսա բալուկա էլ ինչ մատամ ստեղ
Susanna remembers the day the war broke out.
Այնա վախեցան երեխեքը դողալով սենց պատերի տակ կանգնել ենք տանում մեջ ինչ եք իմանում որտեղ գնաք
Huddled together in the basement, they waited for hours for a lull in the fighting.
Խեցակ երեխեքը մամա եկեք դուրս գաք այստեղից վախենում եք եկեք դուրս գաք Մե հայաթում ատրակել ամիջապես
When night fell and the fighting subsided, the family took refuge in a wooden hut in the middle of a forest. In room 422, having managed to get hold of a gas stove, Marine is preparing a meal for her children.
Դե քանի որ հյուրանոցում ոնց որ ասած գազը արկելում են օգտագործել, միգուցե անվտանգության համակարգը միանա, ստիպված ոնց որ դրել եմ ստեղ բաղնիքում ապահովության համար էլի
Widowed with 6 children, she has been allocated a junior suite.
Մեծ հանգիստ մնալը
Their sudden departure meant Marinée and her children brought with them only the clothes they were wearing.
Vodka կայնել, դե հիմա ուղղակի տան խնդիրն է, որ մեր չունենք այս բայ։
Marinée discovered news of her house on TikTok. It is now occupied by Azeris, who broadcasted this propaganda video.
Որ ցուցատված, որ մեր ծանոթ ասեն թե ընդերի բնակիչներ կողքի գյուղերի այս ինչի տունը ինչ են արել, իշել լրիվ ավիրած, ջարդած, փշրած վիճակում։
However, the mother feels the saddest when thinking about the number of young men who have died in combat in the war.
Ոչինչ, թող մեր տարածքները, եթե պիտի տային, եթե իրանցներ, թող մեր տարածքները տային, բայց գոնե այսքան խեղճ երեխեք, այսքան զոհ մենք չունենային։
This defeat brings back one of the most painful memories of Armenian history. In 1915, a genocide perpetrated by the Turks of the Ottoman Empire claimed the lives of between 1.2 and 1.5 million people. On April 23rd each year, a commemorative march takes place, starting in the centre of Yerevan. Church representatives head the procession. More than 9 out of 10 Armenians are Christians. After a 3-hour march, the crowd arrives at the memorial. Flags of the 29 countries that have officially recognized the genocide are displayed around the eternal flame. The ceremony ends with a prayer in memory of the victims. One in 2 Armenians is a descendant of a genocide survivor.
From both sides of my family, I have lost people.
Many Armenians believe that they are still under threat of another mass killing.
Hate towards Armenian is still real, and in order to prevent other episodes like that, we need to keep fighting.
106 years later, the memory of the genocide is still very painful. Turkey, descendant of the Ottoman Empire, and its Azeri ally have never recognized the genocide. For many Armenians, the latest war in Nagorno-Karabakh is nothing more than history repeating itself. Most of the men killed were under the age of 25. Young conscripts, students or volunteers. They all left to defend their country without hesitation, and sometimes without any previous experience with bearing arms. At the military cemetery in Yerevan, their friends and classmates mingle with their families. Ribsime lost her son when he was just 19 years old.
Պատերազմի ընթացքում ըստ լուրերի իր ընկերների օգնություն ցուցաբերելու ընթացքում ինքը հրազենային վիրավորում ստացել.
Her son, a student, was planning to ask his girlfriend's parents for her hand in marriage.
Ուրախ եմ, որ այդ քաղցրությունն էլ ինքը ճաշակեց, որ սիրահարված էր, ընկերուհի ուներ եւ կյանքին էր սիրահարված.
The whole of Armenia refuses to accept defeat. The young people left standing want nothing other than to wreak vengeance, even if the morale of the troops is at an all-time low.
Good night.
To support the soldiers and war casualties, Iveta, a popular Armenian singer, has decided to give a special concert at the Opera House this evening. A number of severely wounded soldiers will be her special guests. Tonight, she'll perform this song as a tribute to the soldiers who died. It's an ordeal for this artist who is deeply rooted in her Armenian identity.
Հենց այն պահին, երբ որ ասում է հայրենիք իմ սրտում, թե չընկնեի ես մարտում, այդտեղ ես չեմ կարողանում երգը երգել ու միշտ հուզվում եմ, միշտ այսպես կոկորդս փակվում է։
Iveta is a politically aware singer who has always defended the Armenian enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. In 2016, during the Eurovision Song Contest, she even brandished her flag, a political gesture forbidden by the rules, which led to hundreds of threats at the time.
Stop, boom, boom, da-da-da-dam, da-da-da-dam, di-da-da-da-da-da. Դու ինձ սա հիշում ես ու լավ տժում ես, այն մեջ արնակի։ Ոչ մի բան չեմ հիշում, բայց աչքի տակով նայում եմ տժում ես։
Iveta seems relaxed. But in reality, she's apprehensive about the concert.
Ինձ համար ինձ թվում է դա ամենադժվարն է ինձ համար լինելու զինվորներին տեսնելը։
With his right arm severely wounded by a bomb explosion, Manuel is one of the soldiers invited by Iveta. The suffering is hard to bear. This afternoon, he's looking forward to a visit from an acupuncturist that will try to help him ease the pain.
Բայց խոսքի ամենաշատը ստեղ ցավում, դե ստեղ էլ արդեն այդ բանված տեղն է, էլի վնասված տեղն է։
Elise is French-Armenian and runs an NGO specializing in war injury pain relief.
Il sent la douleur qui diminue parce qu'il a, en fait, il a les mains glacées et en même temps très douloureuses. Et là, il sent la chaleur diffuser jusqu'au bout des doigts.
Manuel spent a long time in hospital. He's come a long way.
Ոնց որ Աստված հրաշքով փրկեց էլի։ Պրոստը ուղղակի ինգերներս մահաց։ Դժվար է համար սախ։
Tonight, Manuel will try to put his dark thoughts aside. In the opera dressing rooms, Iveta is warming up her voice and rehearsing the famous song she'll dedicate to soldiers. She can't hold back her tears.
Չգիտեմ, երևի կարող անենք երգը։ Ամեն անգամ այս վիճակն է, ամեն անգամ։ Հա, բայց երեխեք, ամեն անգամ ես ես փլվում եմ ես։
Her manager tries to reassure her.
Հա, ուղղակի պատերազմից հետո հնարավոր չի ստացվում։ Նարի մի հատ անձեռու թաշկինակ մի հատ բան կանես։
In the end, Iveta decides to keep the song in her repertoire. The concert starts in a few minutes. In addition to the deaths, more than 10,000 Armenians have been seriously injured as a result of the conflict, many of whom sustained permanent disabilities. In the centre of Yerevan, at Astrik Hospital, Tigran has been undergoing rehabilitation for the last 6 months.
Mm.
19-year-old Tigran was a healthy young man. Today, he's a miraculous survivor of a terrible drone attack. These Turkish and Israeli-made drones have given Azerbaijan technological and air superiority over Armenia. Footage of the shooting was broadcast on social media. Tigran was stationed at an artillery position. His comrade, who was next to him at the time of the attack, died. Tigran lost over 20 kilos and underwent 27 hours of surgery to remove the shrapnel. He lost a chunk of his skull, and some bomb fragments are still inside him, impossible to remove without risking damage to his brain. Tigran had to learn to walk again and is now trying to recover his hands. Tigran's determination impressed the entire medical staff. Tigran hopes to leave the hospital in a few weeks' time. His father has planned a traditional sacrifice of a bull calf to celebrate his return home. In front of the opera house, the wounded soldiers invited to Iveta's concert have just arrived. Manvel has come along with his 8-year-old son.
Մեր համար ոնց որ այս ամեն ինչը իրոքից ինձ հետաքրքիր է այդ ցավերի անցնելուց հետո ոնց որ կյանքը միանգամից ոնց որ նոր սկսվի նորից.
Backstage, Iveta is getting ready to go on stage. Manvel and his son are seated in the stalls. Manvel is conscious that this time has also been very difficult for his two children.
Ճիշտ է, առաջի վախտերը հիվանդանոց չթողեցին իրան, որովհետև ասեցին կարող ազդի, բայց все равно այն ցավերի ժամանակ, որ ինքը տեսնում էր այդ ամեն ինչը, կտեսնեն, ես հուսով եմ, որ այս համերգից հետո իր տրամադրությունը էլ ավելի է sense բարձրանալու.
Good luck. Давай, հաջողություն.
Iveta takes to the stage. And after a few of her hits, comes the tribute song. Iveta still struggles to hold back her tears. The audience gives her a standing ovation. Some spectators go up to comfort her. The show will go on for another hour. After the concert, Iveta joins her fans in the lobby. They have a few surprises. Manuel and his son stood aside for their turn, but it was well worth the wait.
Բայլեցիք Ամերիկա, հա։
Շատ լավ է։ Շնորհակալ։
Դուք ո՞նց եք։
Ոչ շատ բան ասում, ազդեցի։ Մի փոքր կտրեցիք կյանքից։
Շատ։
Շնորհակալ։
Մենք ինչքան կարանք պետքա ձեզ ապրեցնենք։ Ապրեք շատ։
Փորձեցիք անել էլի մի փոքր բան միջից։ Շնորհակալ։
Մերսի ձեզ։ Շատ շնորհակալ եմ։ Պապայի լավ ես նայում։
Պապայի Մերսի ձեզ։
Շնորհակալ եմ ձեզ շատ։
Ծորեկան, շնորհակալություն անչափ։
This disastrous military defeat was partly due to Armenia's armed forces being under-equipped. Unlike Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey, Armenia had no technological weapons. This lack of equipment is said to be largely due to corruption. Gayane, a former member of parliament, is one of the few people who dares to broach the subject.
Այսինքն տասնյակ տարիներ, հա 20 տարուց ավելի բանակը ուղակի կամ բանակին տրված գումարները ուղակի մսխվում էին.
She wants to show us some of the properties of these corrupt officials. She takes us to the heights of Yerevan.
Այնտեղ էլի ունենք մեկ այլ առանձնատուն, մի քիչ այն կողմ բանակի մի քանի հայտնի գեներալների առանձնատներն են, անունները չեմ ուզում ասել.
We used a drone to get an idea of the scale of these properties.
Ամենամեծ ցավը հենց այն է, որ միշտ մտածում ենք, որ այս գումարները, որոնք այստեղ են դրվել, եւ դրվել են մարդկանց կողմից, որոնք չեն ունեցել բիզնես, այլ ունեցել են պետական աշխատավարձ եւ այդ աշխատավարձով որևէ մեկը չէր կարող այսպիսի.
Gayane also speaks out against the corruption of many of the country's political figures. This impressive house belongs to the former president of the National Assembly.
Հովիկ Աբրամյանը մեծ հաշվով իր ողջ կյանքի ընթացքում եղել է պետական պաշտոնյա, բայց իրեն կարողացել են կառուցել միլիոնների առանձնատներ.
In 2018, the new government began to tackle this issue. For example, it revoked the immunity of Gajik Tsarukyan, a wealthy political leader and businessman who owns this gigantic estate. He owns hotels, restaurants, luxury boutiques, and casinos.
Այս խաղատան հետ էր կապված անցած տարի ամռանը գործառույցվեց, որը ասվում էր, որ ըստ քրեական գործի ինչ-որ ապօրինի եւս մեկ խաղատուն է գործարկվել, որը մոտավորապես պետության վրա արժեցել է, այսինքն պետությանը չի վճարվել 30 միլիարդ.
This widespread corruption brought Nikol Pashinyan to power during the Armenian Revolution in 2018. Hundreds of thousands of Armenians took to the streets to show their support for this former journalist who made fighting corruption his political agenda. But just 2 years after his election, he came under fire following the military defeat in Nagorno-Karabakh. The Army General Staff, with the support of the former government, wanted to remove him from office. Nikol Pashinyan called on the Armenian people to support him in the Republic Square. To appease the public, Nikol Pashinyan called for a snap election. He even publicly apologized for his mishandling of the Nagorno-Karabakh crisis. His message was heard. And in June 2021, he was re-elected, as the Armenian people had finally decided against the return of the old corruption-ridden government. At the hospital where Tigran is undergoing rehabilitation, the big day is finally here. The young man can finally go home. His father, who's not seen his son for several weeks, has come to pick him up. After the attack, Tigran was disfigured, but it was thanks to a small facial feature that his father Armen was able to recognize him. Tigran looks healthier, he's put on weight, he's smiling again, and he's made a lot of progress. When Tigran arrived at the emergency room, Armen clung on to the slightest signs of life, as the chances of him pulling through were slim. Before setting off home, Tigran has one final appointment with one of the surgeons who operated on him. His doctor wants to make sure he's all right, and he's got some good news for him. Without this prosthesis, which is several centimeters in diameter, the slightest blow to his head could be fatal for Tigran. His mother is worried. A final goodbye to the hospital staff. And it's time to hit the road. Tigran and his family live 3 hours by car from the capital, on the shores of Lake Sevan, in the small town of Vardenis. To celebrate his son's return, Armen invited his family and friends. He's going to treat them to a grand traditional banquet. Following local custom, the ritual begins with the sacrifice of a bull calf. Before the animal is slaughtered, it is given blessed salt in its mouth.
Երբ իմ երեխեն ոտքով եկավ ասավ իմ դուր, ես մատաղ կինեմ։ Նրա համար խոսք եմ տվել ասում ու մատաղ եմ իրե։
While the men cut the meat and prepare the meal, Tigran welcomes his friends. Samvel, his best friend, never expected to see him again.
Փոքր ժամանակից ու ամեն ինչ արել ենք, ինչ խնջուրիկ քեֆ եղել է, իրար հետ ենք արել այդ ամեն ինչը։ Ու անհնարին էր, ես չէի հավատում, որ կարող է եւ մի օր սենց ինքին կողքի նստի ստեղ, բայց փաստորեն անհնարին երբեք ոչ մի չի լինում։
Հիմա որ սենց սաղի հետ չփվում է ուրախա, երջանիկ եմ։ Այդքան։
While the meat finishes cooking, the guests settle around the table, men on one side and women on the other. As per tradition, Tigran's godfather gets the party started by raising a toast. Tigran's lively grandfather warms up the room. On the dance floor, Armen makes sure his son's head is well protected. But as the party goes on, Tigran stays on the women's side, his injured hand deep in his pocket. His family, and then his grandfather, tried to convince him to dance, but without success. In the end, it's Samvel, his best friend, who gets him back into the party spirit. For a brief moment, waving his arms in the air, Tigran seems to have forgotten his disability and pain. Before his next operation, scheduled in a few months' time, Tigran's father, who is a devoted believer, is keen to have his son baptized in the Vardenis church. After being subject to a 40-year anti-religion campaign under the Soviet regime, religion is gradually being restored to a central role in Armenian society. After the fall of the USSR in 1991, many churches were in a very poor condition. In the Lori region, the priest of Odzun fought to save his church, which dates back to the 6th century.
Եվ սկսեցի, ասեք, Բաքում պետքարան կառուցելուց, Փարիսը կառուցելուց, Բակը բարեկարգելուց, եկեղեցու տանիքները նորոգելուց եւ Աստծո հաջողությամբ քիչ-քիչ եկեղեցին այսօր պատշաճ տեսքի է եկել եւ հիմա էլ փորձում ենք այստեղ համայնք ձևավորենք, որ
Unlike in most Western countries, priests in Armenia can marry, but if they do, they are obliged to have at least one child. Urtenes has 4.
Մեծ տղաս արդեն 17 տարեկան է, փոքր աղջիկս 9 տարեկան է։
The Armenian church sees this as a matter of common sense.
Այսինքն տարբեր են ընտանեկան խնդիրները։ Դրանցով են քաջատեղյակ չլինելը, դրանցով չապրելը լուրջ չի։
In Armenia, religious leaders are highly respected members of the community. 95% of its population is Christian, and the vast majority are practicing.
Եվ թող Տիրոջ շնորհը լինի ձեզ հետ, այժմ եւ միշտ, եւ ավիտյանս ավիտենից ամեն։
The following afternoon, the priest from Odzun changed out of his cassock into some sportswear. He is the guest of the mayor of Alaverdi, a neighbouring town devastated by the collapse of the Soviet bloc.
The parda kapete.
Kapeti bilartrin.
Դուք ընթացքում կջոգեք, էլի, ասեք։
To attract tourists and give the town's economy a boost, the mayor wants to promote a new activity: rafting.
We take paddle with 2 hands.
He would like priests to promote rafting at their congregations.
Գլացոցը երկրորդ ականը։ Արամը մեզ 4-րդ ակամա բացատրում, բայց մենք առաջի ակամից մինչև 4-րդ ակամը չենք լսել իրան։
The river is flooded. So before setting off, a little precaution is in order. From the get-go, the team is a little slow off the mark. And as they hit the first rapids, the raft almost flips over. One man has fallen out of the raft. The team finally managed to get him back on board. Everyone is smiling again. Since the end of the communist regime, many of Alaverdi's residents have fallen into poverty. Over the last 30 years, Armenia's unemployment rate has skyrocketed. All over Armenia, huge Russian factories have been shut down or abandoned. They used to employ hundreds of thousands of people. The Alaverdi plant employed 4,000 workers of its 20,000 residents. The town was brought to its knees by the factory's closure. The mayor agreed to show us inside the factory. In its heyday, it produced the highest quality copper, chiefly used to make Soviet medals. The mayor would like to use the factory to save his town from bankruptcy and provide hundreds of people with jobs. He wants to turn it into a big tourist attraction.
Նախին սովետական են մեր լեզով ասած գրանյոնի բաժակներով ճաշարան շինենք սովետական, հա, ու ինչ որ միջավայր ստեղծենք, որ մարդը տուրիստը գա 2 ժամով էս արտադրությանը ծանոթանա, ինչ որ միջավայր ստեղծենք, նաև ինչու՞ չէ, նաև ասենք հյուրանոց։
One of the reasons the factory closed down was because of the extremely toxic fumes it emitted. Many former workers think that all that's needed is to renovate it and filter the chimneys. Sargis, head of the control room, has worked here for 40 years.
Երեխեքը մարդիկ որ գնում են, երեխեքը գնում են, երեխեքը գնացին դպրոցներն են փակվում, դպրոցները փակվեց ուրիշ բան է փակվում։
Alaverdi has already lost almost half its inhabitants, and those who remain are often unemployed. This Soviet-era building is the home of Samvel, a former employee at the factory. When the factory was in its prime, the citizens of Alaverdi lived a good life. The former worker is nostalgic for that Soviet past.
Կոմբինատից մենք շատ էինք օգտվում, շատ առևտուրը կար, ամեն ինչը կար, փողն էլ ջեբի տեր, գնում էր շիրունքի ինչ ուզում էր առնում էր գնում տուն։ Լավն էր, լավ օրեր ենք տեսել, վատ օրեր ենք տենում, ու կտենանք երևի, չգիտեմ ինչքան վաղ։
Since the end of the Soviet era, 600,000 Armenians have gone abroad in search of work, the equivalent of 2 out of every 10 people. With 2,000 Russian soldiers deployed on the new borders of Nagorno-Karabakh, the situation with Azerbaijan remains very tense.